Until President Trump appoints a new U.S. attorney for the District of Idaho, DOJ staff in Boise will take care of the office's day-to-day tasks. And it could be a year or more before we get a new U.S. attorney. We're not sure who it might be, but on Thursday we did speak to one prominent Republican lawyer, Senate Majority Leader Bart Davis. Thank you so much for joining us today. Senator Davis, we just spoke to the U.S. Attorney Wendy Olson. She, of course, is leaving office this week. Is that a job that you're interested in?
I'm aware of her resignation and wish her well in her new assignment. I'm sure she'll do well at whatever she does.
That was a really good non-answer.
No, I've been doing this for a while.
I can tell. You know, over the years in the Senate, you're an attorney and you also have served on the Senate Judiciary Committee. And I'm curious about your view of the state of the judiciary in Idaho. Is it healthy, and are there areas that need to be addressed?
Oh, I think we've got a strong judiciary right now. From our Supreme Court to our Court of Appeals to our District Court, our Magistrate Court, administrative. I think the court should be proud of themselves. They are doing a lot right, but they have to live within the rules that the court, or excuse me, the legislature sets up as far as how they're structured and organized. For instance, we have a statute that's been around for a long time that says that every county gets to have one magistrate judge, at least one.
Regardless of the population.
Regardless of population. Mm-hmm. And many of those judges do not have a 40 or 50 or 60-hour work week for them in their home county. And these are talented men and women, and so we draw on them to help in other counties. If you're a district court judge, you run within one of the 7 judicial districts, and you run district-wide. But if you're a magistrate judge, you run in the county that you reside. And when I say run, that means that's where you stand for election. So Bonneville County, my home county, I'm from Idaho Falls, we have a lot of magistrate judge time spent each day, week, and month, and year by magistrates from other counties. Judge Wood this week said that approximately 70% of the caseload handled in Bonneville County is being handled by magistrate judges from other counties. I've got no quarrel with the quality of the work that they do. Oh, heavens, yeah. I'm a lawyer. You know, anytime you don't get exactly what you want, by golly, you know, that judge got it wrong.
But you're happy with these judges who are traveling in, but they're also spending a lot of time behind the steering wheel and traveling from, say, Clark County to Idaho Falls. And, you know, scenic Idaho Falls, who wouldn't want to visit there, but they're spending up to 4 days a week out of their home counties. Is that, what's the solution there, or is this something that needs to be solved?
Well, it is complex. It is easier to recognize the problem than it is to find the solution. And the court brought a bill that just said, in essence, that if your population was at about 4% or less of the state, that
less than 0.4% of 1% of the statewide.
That's right. That you aren't necessarily going to be entitled to have a magistrate judge in your county. Now, the court's not saying that's what the policy should be. The court said, look, the legislature hasn't considered this policy in 50 years. We bring this bill to begin the conversation. If this is the way you want to go, then great, let's run it. But if it's not, then what is your solution as a legislature? And that's what we've got to decide. We chose not to run that bill. But I don't know what the right solution is. I know that I don't feel comfortable that the residents of my county have 70% of the cases decided in the county by capable judges that they still don't have the right to vote to keep them in or throw them out. I don't think that's good public policy. I don't know what that percentage number should be, but I do believe it should be well south of 50%.
And that's certainly an issue we're going to keep an eye on. One of the issues that that's one of the issues that the legislature has talked about a little bit. One of the issues that's getting a lot of coverage, though, is the Article 5 convention, which you have expressed a whole lot of concerns. Are you in a place where you can be convinced that this is a good idea?
Well, at the time that we're taping this, we haven't had the committee hearing. We'll have it in the morning. Historically, I don't think that Article 5 proponents have counted me as a friend. I'm not on their Christmas card list.
That's too bad.
It is. These are good people, but I have had serious problems with the idea as well as the language that's being brought. But the bill that we're looking at tomorrow really isn't so much about language. It really is about the idea. Should we have a convention for the purpose of adopting a balanced budget amendment? Can you scope it? Can you literally control it or limit it to a single subject? Well, I can promise you that for every scholar who says yes, I can find you a scholar who says no. But we're going to balance tomorrow the question of, is the risk worth it? You're $20 trillion in debt, and that's what they will at least admit to. Then you've got the unfunded liabilities out there. That's going to be a question that I think legislators are going to disagree on. But your question is, am I open to persuasion? Heck yes, I'm going in. I lean no. Mm-hmm. I lean no.
And you've been open about that.
And I think most people know.
I think you're not getting Christmas cards from the Article 5 proponents, which is a shame. But you are open to it. Do you know how you're going to vote Friday morning until you get there and you cast your vote?
No, I don't. I really don't. People who think that oral argument or committee meetings make no difference haven't sat in my chair, because it does all the time. Not just what the folks say, but then to hear the conversation of the committee and to hear them wrestle with this. And a lot of the votes that we cast, it's not like I voted aye, therefore I'm 100% confident in it. I'm not. I only get to vote yes or no, and sometimes I'm only 53% yes. But I know that my colleagues on that committee are wrestling with this as well. We're not talking about it behind the scenes, but when we begin that conversation tomorrow as a committee, I'm going to be very interested to hear how they're struggling with it, and that could help me in a different direction than I have been in the past.
You mentioned the importance of process and listening to the testimony and thinking about these conversations, and that kind of speaks to the importance of decorum, which I know has been part of the public conversation after the tense presidential election we just had, the town hall meetings at which people are being shouted at, and constituents are pretty upset that some of their elected officials aren't listening to them, or seemingly aren't listening to them. Are you concerned about the state of decorum in the Idaho State House right now?
Well, I can only speak for my Senate and my committees. And I've been there for a while now. This is my 19th year. I've been majority leader for quite a while as well. The people I have in my Senate are conducting themselves in my opinion, a civil and dignified way. They are respectful to each other. They listen. They don't necessarily agree with each other. There used to be an old line that we said all the time in the Capitol that I like you, I just don't like your bill. And we don't say that in the Senate much anymore, but we do live it. And I think that on balance, we mostly practice it. And if we get a little out of line, well, I know how to take us at ease, and we just go back to the lounge there and have a pretzel and visit and just let emotions settle down. The people want us to handle hard issues, But I hope that they expect us to do it in a civil and respectful way. Pick apart issues, don't pick apart people. And that's what our predecessors gave me, and that's what I'm working hard with my friends to try to leave to my and their successors.
You mentioned difficult issues. There are.
Oh, great. Now you've got one for me.
I know.
Thanks.
Not just one. Don't worry.
Okay, thanks.
Don't worry. One that you've been involved in over the years has been Add the Words. And from an outsider's perspective, I've heard a lot of advocates express frustration. They feel like the issue is not necessarily moving forward, even though tactics of proponents have changed over the years. Can you give us an insight into whether this is moving forward, or is this something that's just still not ripe?
Well, I can only speak for Bart Davis, and I think that Idahoans believe that a person's employment and their housing should be protected by law.
And that seems easy.
And well, it is. I think that those are words that are easier to find. It's the public accommodations that is the challenge, and how do you solve that?
Why is that a challenge if it's public accommodation?
Well, what is public accommodations? In Idaho, we have a definition in our Human Rights Act of public accommodations. It's very broad. It's about anything you can imagine. And that's where the challenge is how do you work your way through that in a respectful way? And that's where the rub has been for some time. I'm not done trying to find a solution. I think that what I call a SOGI statute, sexual orientation, gender identity statute, is the right thing for Idaho to do. But I think if you look at it exclusively through the lens of a free exercise of religion, that this is a great opportunity for you to do that, to protect that as well. Because I'm not finding people unwilling to try and find a solution. It's just trying to find enough legislative support that they're willing to look at language and help me understand with them what are the things that we need to protect. And there's that conversation has been going on. It is not going on this year as significantly as it has in the past.
Is that something you're hopeful that will happen next year?
Well, I still want the conversation to continue through this year. And I have been involved, and I'll continue to be involved as long as I'm there and try to be helpful.
With transportation, that's another issue that the legislature has struggled with for several years now. And I'm thinking of the very contentious conference committee in 2015 that I think that there are still raw feelings over in the House and the Senate.
Not on our side.
Okay.
For the Senate is, we're focused on the challenges of the day, not the problems from yesteryear.
Well, maybe it's just the House side then. Is that what you're saying?
No, I hope they aren't there either.
Well, that said, it's still been a challenge this entire time to figure out funding. And this year we have not only a new administration, but we also have very visible challenges to Idaho's infrastructure with crumbling roads after the floods, washed out bridges in some cases. We've seen pretty dramatic photos from across Idaho.
That's right.
Is that going to be enough to come up with a solution between the Senate and the House? And is that going to be the going home issue this year?
Well, there'll always be a series of issues that are important to be able to resolve before we go home. I think that there is a great deal of resolve in the House and in the Senate to do something significant on transportation, but we're not talking about some permanent ongoing solution. We're talking about what can we do in the 2017 session that can provide some additional assistance to our local communities. Do we reauthorize the surplus eliminator that currently gives a percentage of the excess money to the transportation department for the state, and then we use it for state projects? Or do we say that those same dollars, a portion of them, will now go to local communities like it does for the other part of fuel taxes? Well, I think that there is a strong desire among many legislators to make sure that those dollars are run through some kind of a formula so that cities and counties and highway districts have some additional money to help with the projects and the needs they're going to definitely have this spring and summer.
Is the solution we see this legislative session going to be another temporary fix like we saw in 2015?
Well, yes.
Are we any closer to finding a permanent solution, or are we going to be having the same conversation in 2019?
You will. These are the kinds of conversations that are easy to say, well, we wish it just permanently solve it. You never permanently solve these problems. And the reason that you don't is that the dynamics change. You think you have permanently solved it one year, and then you find out the next year the problem's bigger or the problem's smaller. That's why we use the line in the Capitol that this legislature can't bind the next legislature. So no, there never is going to be a permanent fix, or shouldn't be a permanent fix. But it will fix the problems that we hope will help to fix the problems that we can see today.
All right, Senator Davis, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome, and thank you for the invitation.
In that Thursday interview, Senator Davis mentioned the Article 5 convention vote. It turns out it didn't matter if he could be convinced. On Friday morning, the resolution passed out of the Senate State Affairs Committee on a 5-4 vote, with Davis being in the minority. If he's still concerned, he'll have a chance to make his case on the Senate floor.